Is having permanent daylight savings time a good idea? There was a bill that passed the Senate to have permanent daylight saving time. Let me tell you why that would be an absolute and utter disaster. By the way, I'm a sleep medicine doc at Duke. If you or someone you know sleeps, follow me. You won't regret it. First and foremost, and I know you know this, the amount of light we get in any 24-hour period, the time that we set on our clocks has no impact on that amount of light, right? We're going to see the same amount of light in a 24-hour period. That's based on the tilt of the Earth and the season that we're in. And the Earth don't care what time we set on our phones. No lies detected. So let's compare how much light you receive during the longest day of the year to the shortest day of the year in various cities. For example, in summertime in Denver, you're going to have 15 hours of sunlight in a 24-hour period. In Seattle, almost 16 hours. In Miami, almost 14 hours. But in the winter, you get a lot less light. And so the shortest day of the year, you're going to have anywhere from 3 to 7 hours less light. For example, in Seattle, Washington, you get 7.5 hours less light in a 24-hour period. This is just based on the season. So we know we're naturally going to get more light during the summer seasons. Now, what happens during permanent daylight savings is that we keep our clocks the same time that we have during the spring and summer, which means a later sunrise and a later sunset. And that's great for places that are on the easternmost part of the time zone because sunrise and sunset tend to be very early. For example, in Maine, in wintertime, sunset is at like 4 o'clock, right? So that would be at 5 o'clock instead. But the problem arises when we look at sunrise times in the mornings in places particularly that are on the westernmost part of each time zone. This chart shows sunrise time depending on the time of the year. If we had permanent daylight savings, this color is 7 to 8 o'clock, this color is 8 to 9. This color is 9 to 10 a.m. in the mornings and when sun would rise. And so what happens when we start getting later and later in the year and we're starting to hit wintertime, that sunrise is very late. All right, here's a picture of sunrise time during the shortest day of the year in wintertime. And this is the scale here. Look at this dark blue. That's a really late sunrise. Sunrise in Seattle, Washington would be around 9 a.m. The same goes for some other parts of the United States. What does that mean? That means you're going to school in the dark, you're starting school in the dark, you're driving to work in the dark, and that's an absolute disaster. Not only for your safety, but also for sleep. You rely on those early morning light cues to keep your circadian rhythm lined up in the right spot. And without it, we tend to shift our circadian rhythm later, making it hard to wake up. And if those things aren't enough to convince you, please remember that we already tried this. We tried this back in the 70s. Nixon passed it. We did it for 2 years. People hated it. Before it was passed, 80% of people supported it. And just a few months later, 40% of people supported it. Children were getting hit by cars in the morning, walking to school in the dark. People were starting work in school and it was still pitch black outside. It was an utter disaster. And just 1 week after Nixon resigned, guess who passed the bill to get rid of permanent daylight savings? It was Bob Dole. So if permanent daylight savings isn't the answer, do we just keep doing what we're currently doing and flipping spring and fall? No, the actual answer is permanent standard time. The time that we're currently in right now, keeping that year-round. Better sleep, better health, better safety, and I guarantee you a happier society.